Hey everyone, welcome back to our English Learning Podcast episode. I'm Sophia, and today we're diving into a topic that I know many of you struggle with: how to stay focused while studying. Whether you're cramming for finals, learning a new skill, or just trying to concentrate on that long reading assignment, we've all faced the challenge of keeping our attention on the task at hand.
Absolutely, Sophia. It's so easy to get sidetracked these days. With our phones buzzing, social media constantly pulling at our attention, and the never-ending stream of information, it's no wonder many of us find it hard to focus. I mean, who hasn't found themselves scrolling through TikTok instead of hitting the books?
Right? And if you've ever started a study session only to realize an hour has gone by and you haven't absorbed a single thing, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're here to unpack the reasons why focusing is such a challenge and share practical tips to help you master the art of concentration.
We're not just going to throw random advice at you. We'll dig into the science behind focus, identify common distractions, and provide real-life strategies that actually work. Plus, we'll share our own personal struggles and triumphs in finding focus amidst the chaos.
And we want this to be interactive. Throughout the episode, we'll be addressing questions from our viewers, so make sure to stick around until the end. We're excited to hear your thoughts and share some solutions together.
So grab your notebooks or a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's jump right into the first segment. We're about to transform how you study and help you unlock your full potential.
Segment 1. The science behind focus. Okay, let's get into it. Ever wonder why it's so hard to stay focused, especially when you really need to get things done? There's actually a lot happening in our brains that makes it tricky.
Right. Our brains are wired for survival. They're always on the lookout for new and exciting things. Basically, your brain loves distractions. But when it comes to focus, it's like trying to tame a wild animal.
Exactly. And that's because we have something called the spotlight theory of attention. Picture this. Your attention is like a spotlight. It can only focus on one thing at a time. When that spotlight starts jumping from task to task, what do we get, Adam?
We get multitasking, which we all know by now is a myth. You're not actually doing multiple things at once. You're just switching your focus super fast, and that's exhausting for your brain.
Yes. And the more you try to juggle, the less you're able to focus deeply on any one thing. That's why it's hard to focus for long periods. Our brains aren't built for it. But don't worry, because there are ways to work with how your brain functions, not against it.
And then there's the dopamine factor. Dopamine is that feel-good chemical in your brain that rewards you for novelty. Every time you check your phone or switch tabs, you get a little hit of dopamine. It feels good in the moment, but it wrecks your long-term focus.
That's why every time you hear a ping or see a notification, your brain is like, "Ooh, what's that?" And it's almost impossible to resist. Your attention gets hijacked, and before you know it, you're lost in a sea of distractions.
Right. And here's a cool fact. Studies have shown that the brain can only really focus for about 20 to 30 minutes at a time before it starts wandering. It's why those marathon study sessions leave you feeling drained and unfocused.
Exactly. So, if you've ever wondered why you lose steam after half an hour, it's not you being lazy, it's your brain being normal. This is where techniques like the Pomodoro technique really shine.
Pomodoro, yes. We'll dive deeper into that soon. But just know this. The science behind focus tells us that shorter, intense bursts of concentration are much more effective than trying to power through hours of study time.
And here's another fun fact. Our brain has something called the default mode network. This is like your brain's background mode when you're not actively focusing. It's when daydreaming happens, or when your mind starts wandering in the middle of studying. But this isn't always a bad thing.
Exactly. That wandering mode is actually when some of your most creative thoughts happen. So don't beat yourself up if your mind drifts during studying. The key is knowing how to bring it back to the task at hand.
Which is where mindfulness techniques come into play. But more on that later. For now, just remember, focus is a muscle you can train, and understanding the science behind it is the first step in mastering it.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Sophia. So to recap, our brain is built for distractions. Multitasking doesn't really work, and we need to respect those natural focus cycles. But don't worry, because we've got some killer strategies coming up to help you hack your brain and stay on top of your studies.
Stick around, because next up, we're going to break down those distractions and show you how to crush them, one by one. Segment 2. Identifying your distractions and bad habits. Okay, so now that we understand a bit more about how our brain works, let's talk about what's actually getting in the way when we try to focus. Spoiler alert, it's not just our phones.
Yeah, distractions come in all shapes and sizes, and I bet most people think their biggest distraction is social media. While that's a major one, sometimes the things pulling our focus are a bit sneakier.
Right. It could be your environment, mental clutter, or even those tiny habits you don't realize are sabotaging you. So, Adam, what would you say is your number one distraction when you're trying to study?
Oh, easy, my phone. It's a classic. I'll tell myself, I'm just checking one message, and before I know it, I'm scrolling through Instagram or YouTube for 30 minutes. It's crazy how one notification can send me down a rabbit hole.
I think we can all relate to that. It's like the phone pulls you in without you even realizing it. And here's a crazy statistic. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus on a task after getting distracted. So every time you check that text, you're throwing off your concentration for almost half an hour.
That's wild. And the worst part? Even just knowing your phone is nearby can be enough to mess with your focus. Studies show that having it within arm's reach makes your brain anticipate a notification, even if it never comes.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, the first step is to identify what your personal distractions are. For some people, it's their phone. For others, it might be noise or even a cluttered desk.
Let's talk about that. Physical clutter can lead to mental clutter. Ever try to focus while sitting at a messy desk? Your brain is constantly being bombarded with signals like, oh, I should clean that, or I'll just move this paper. It pulls you out of focus.
That's why one of the best things you can do is to create a focus-friendly environment. Whether it's decluttering your space or moving to a quiet room, changing your surroundings can help you stay on task.
Totally. But distractions aren't just external. Sometimes the real enemy is in our own heads, like procrastination. I mean, how often do you sit down to study and suddenly remember you have to check your emails or make a snack?
Guilty. And it's crazy, because procrastination is often a way of avoiding discomfort. Your brain doesn't want to do something difficult, so it'll find anything else to focus on, like that snack you didn't even want 5 minutes ago.
And that's where bad habits come into play. We don't even realize how much time we lose to these tiny, unproductive habits. You think you're just taking a quick break, but all those little breaks add up to lost time and fractured focus.
Yes. So here's a quick exercise for everyone watching or listening. Write down 3 things you know distract you while studying. It could be anything, from your phone to Netflix to random thoughts popping into your head.
And once you've got your list, the next step is coming up with solutions. For example, if your phone distracts you, turn it off, put it on airplane mode, or, my favorite, stick it in a different room.
If noise gets to you, invest in some noise-cancelling headphones or listen to white noise or instrumental music. Personally, I love using those nature sound playlists when I need to focus.
Same. And if clutter's your issue, spend just 5 minutes before your study session tidying up your space. Trust me, it makes a huge difference.
And if your distraction is internal, like stress or anxiety, take a minute to acknowledge it. Sometimes just writing down what's on your mind can help clear your thoughts so you're not mentally battling with yourself while trying to focus.
Exactly. The key here is self-awareness. Once you know what's pulling you off track, you can put systems in place to avoid those distractions. And that brings us to the next part, how to actually replace those bad habits with ones that boost focus.
Yes! We're going to dive into the specific strategies that will help you build better habits and eliminate distractions, so stick around because we're about to get practical. All right, now it's time for the good stuff. We've talked about distractions and why it's so hard to focus, but what can we actually do about it? I'm about to share my top 3 go-to strategies for staying laser-focused no matter what's going on around you.
I've been waiting for this part. I always say Sophia's the queen of focus. I've seen you work for hours without breaking concentration, so I need to hear these tips for myself.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Adam. But seriously, these strategies have saved me so many times, and I'm excited to share them. So let's dive right in with the first one, the Pomodoro technique.
The Pomodoro. We teased this one earlier, but break it down for us, Sophia. Why does this work so well?
So the idea behind Pomodoro is simple. You break your work into 25-minute blocks of focus, called Pomodoros, followed by a 5-minute break. After 4 Pomodoros, you take a longer break, maybe 15 to 30 minutes. It's based on the science that our brains can only focus intensely for short bursts of time. This technique works because it turns long study sessions into manageable chunks. 25 minutes feels way less intimidating than telling yourself you need to work for hours. And during that time, you can give your full attention because you know a break is coming soon.
That makes sense. I've tried it, and it really does take the pressure off. Plus, I feel more productive with those little breaks. It's like a reward system for your brain.
Exactly. And those breaks help prevent burnout. So for everyone listening, if you've got a big task ahead of you, try Pomodoro. Set a timer for 25 minutes and commit to doing nothing but studying or working during that time. You'll be surprised how much you get done. All right, strategy number 2, the 2-minute rule. This one's a game changer for anyone who struggles with procrastination.
Oh, I've heard of this one. It's all about tricking your brain into starting a task, right?
Exactly. The 2-minute rule is simple. If something will take less than 2 minutes, do it right now. And if you're avoiding something bigger, just commit to doing it for 2 minutes. Once you start, you'll often find the task isn't as bad as you thought, and you'll want to keep going. This strategy helps with those moments when you're staring at a blank page or just can't seem to get started. Telling yourself, "I'll just do 2 minutes," removes that mental barrier. And 9 times out of 10, you'll keep going once you get into the flow.
I love that. It's so easy to get stuck in that "I'll do it later" mindset. But with the 2-minute rule, there's no excuse not to start.
Exactly. It's all about lowering the threshold for action. And that brings me to my third and final strategy, mindful breaks.
Ooh, I like this one. Breaks are important, but what makes them mindful?
So, this is a trick I use to recharge my brain during study sessions. Instead of scrolling through my phone during breaks, I do something that fully takes me out of study mode, but still relaxes me, like stretching, deep breathing, or even taking a quick walk. The key here is to actually disconnect during your break so that your brain can rest. If you spend your 5-minute Pomodoro break watching videos or scrolling social media, you're still overloading your mind. But a mindful break gives your brain space to recharge, so when you get back to work, you're refreshed and ready to go.
That makes total sense. I've definitely been guilty of turning a break into a distraction only to lose more time getting back on track.
We've all been there. But taking mindful breaks lets you reset mentally and physically, whether it's a few deep breaths, stretching your legs, or just stepping outside for some fresh air. It makes a huge difference.
So, to recap, we've got the Pomodoro technique for managing your time, the 2-minute rule to beat procrastination, and mindful breaks to recharge properly. Honestly, Sophia, I'm stealing all 3 of these strategies for myself.
Steal away. They've worked wonders for me, and I hope they do the same for everyone watching. So, what do you think? Are you ready to try these focus hacks in your next study session?
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear from all of you. What are your go-to focus strategies? Drop them in the comments or share your experience if you try these out.
Yes! We love hearing your feedback. Stay tuned because up next we're getting into habit building and how to turn these strategies into long-term routines.
All right, so we've talked about strategies, but what I really want to dive into now is mindset. Because honestly, no matter how many techniques you try, if your mindset isn't right, you're going to struggle to stay focused. For me, shifting my mindset around focus was a game changer.
That's so true. I feel like mindset is such a huge piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked. So, what was the first major mindset shift for you?
Well, the first big shift I had to make was this. Stop chasing perfect focus. I used to think I needed to be focused 100% of the time, and anytime I got distracted, I felt like I had failed. But here's the thing. No one can stay laser-focused for hours on end without getting distracted.
Exactly. People tend to think distractions are failures, but they're natural.
Exactly. So, what I started doing is allowing myself some grace. It's not about being perfectly focused all the time. It's about learning to refocus quickly after a distraction. Once I made that shift, I noticed I wasn't as hard on myself, and it became easier to get back on track.
I love that. It takes away the pressure and it makes focusing feel more achievable.
Absolutely. And the second mindset shift I made? Distractions are signals. I stopped seeing distractions as failures and started seeing them as clues. If I'm getting distracted, there's a reason. Maybe I'm bored, maybe I'm stressed, or maybe I need a break. So instead of getting frustrated, I ask myself, why am I getting distracted right now?
That's such a great way to reframe distractions. It's not about blaming yourself, it's about getting curious and understanding what's happening.
Exactly. I realized that when I'm distracted, it's often because my brain needs something, whether it's rest, a change of scenery, or even just a mental reset. So instead of powering through, I try to address the root cause of the distraction, and that helps me refocus much faster.
That's such a healthy approach. So instead of seeing distractions as enemies, you're using them as information to help you focus better.
Exactly. It's all about working with your brain, not against it. And the third shift I made? Focus on progress, not perfection. This one was huge for me. We all have this idea that we need to be productive every second, but that's just not how real life works.
Yes, that all or nothing mindset is so common, but it really holds people back.
Totally. What I started doing is focusing on making small progress each day. Maybe I won't finish a huge project in one sitting, but if I can learn one new thing or get through one section of a task, I count that as a win. Over time, those small wins add up.
That's such a powerful shift. When you focus on small progress, it keeps you motivated, even on days when you're not feeling 100%.
Exactly. And it takes the pressure off. I tell myself, just do what you can today. It makes focusing easier because you're not overwhelmed by the bigger picture. You're just moving forward bit by bit.
Such great advice. So to sum up your mindset shifts, first, stop aiming for perfect focus and learn to refocus when distractions happen. Second, treat distractions as signals that something needs attention. And third, focus on progress, not perfection.
Exactly. These mindset shifts have been a game changer for me, and I hope they help everyone watching too.
I'm sure they will. And we'd love to hear from all of you. What mindset shifts have helped you stay focused? Let us know in the comments, or if you try Adam's tips, share your experience with us.
Yes! And stick around because up next we're diving into how to turn these mindset shifts into habits that stick long term.
So, we've talked strategies, we've talked mindset, but let's be real. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, life gets in the way, right?
Absolutely. It's one thing to have all these tips and tricks, but when you're facing real-life challenges like stress, family obligations, or even burnout, staying focused can feel impossible.
Exactly. And I think this is where most people get stuck. It's not that they don't know how to focus, it's that life keeps throwing curveballs at them. So let's dive into some of those challenges, and more importantly, how to overcome them.
All right, let's start with a big one. Stress. Whether it's school stress, work stress, or just feeling overwhelmed, with everything going on, stress is one of the biggest focus killers.
Yes, stress is a huge one. When you're stressed, it feels like your brain is running in 100 different directions, and it's hard to stay on task. What's your go-to solution when stress hits, Adam?
For me, it's all about simplifying and prioritizing. When I'm overwhelmed, I tend to write down every single thing I need to do, and then I ask myself, what's the one thing I can do right now that would make the biggest difference? That way, I focus on the most important task first, and everything else can wait.
That's a great approach. Sometimes just breaking things down can make the stress feel more manageable. For me, when stress hits, I also rely on breathing exercises. I'll take a few minutes to do some deep, slow breaths to calm my nervous system. It helps me reset before jumping back into my work.
That's such a good one. People underestimate how powerful something as simple as breathing can be. It clears your mind and gives you space to focus again.
Exactly. The next challenge? Family obligations. Whether it's kids, siblings, or just daily household responsibilities, it's hard to carve out focused time when everyone needs something from you.
Tell me about it. I've been in situations where I sit down to study, and within 10 minutes, someone's knocking on my door asking for help. It's tough. But here's what I found works. Communicate and set boundaries.
Yes, communication is key.
Totally. I started telling my family, I need these next 2 hours to focus, so unless it's an emergency, please hold off on interruptions. It felt awkward at first, but people respect it when you explain why that focused time is important to you.
That's such great advice. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. And if you communicate with the people around you, they're usually more understanding than we expect. Another tip that's worked for me is creating a dedicated workspace. It's like a signal to others and yourself that when you're there, it's time to focus.
Yes. Even if it's just a corner of your room, having a space that's all about focus can help you switch into work mode. It's like telling your brain, all right, we're in focus zone now.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to one of the biggest focus killers of all, burnout.
Oof, burnout. I think we've all been there, right? You're working nonstop, pushing yourself day after day, and then suddenly, you hit a wall. It's like your brain just shuts down, and no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to focus on anything.
Yes! Burnout doesn't just affect your focus. It can take a toll on your mental and physical health, too. So how do you deal with it?
When I feel burnout creeping in, I give myself permission to rest. I know it sounds counterintuitive, But sometimes the best way to regain your focus is to take a break. And I mean a real break. No half working while pretending to relax. I'll step away from my work entirely, go for a walk, or even binge watch a show guilt-free.
That's such an important point. We tend to think that pushing through burnout will help us get more done, but it only makes things worse. I've learned that self-care is key when dealing with burnout, whether it's taking a day off, getting enough sleep, or doing something that brings you joy. These things are not luxuries, they're necessities.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that focus isn't just about willpower or productivity hacks. It's also about self-awareness. You need to recognize when your body and mind are telling you to slow down and not be afraid to listen.
Yes. Focus isn't just a skill, it's a balance between working hard and taking care of yourself. So, to everyone listening, remember, it's okay to step back when you need to. Your focus will be so much sharper when you've given yourself time to recharge.
Exactly. And that's how you overcome the real-life challenges that threaten your focus, stress, family obligations, and burnout. It's not about avoiding these challenges altogether. It's about knowing how to manage them when they inevitably show up.
Absolutely. So if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or burned out, take a step back, reset, and apply some of the strategies we've talked about. You've got this.
And we'd love to hear from you. What real-life challenges have you faced when trying to stay focused? Let us know in the comments and share what's worked for you.
Yes. And stay tuned for the final segment, where we're going to dive into how to turn all of these strategies into long-lasting habits that stick. All right, now it's time to hear from you. We asked on social media what your biggest study challenges are, and we got some fantastic questions. Adam, let's dive into the first one. Yeah, this one's from Rahul. How do I stay focused when studying something I'm not interested in? Oof, that's a tough one. We've all been there, right? Definitely. When you're not passionate about the subject, it feels like every minute of studying drags on. But here's the thing. You don't have to love it to get through it.
Exactly. One of the best tricks I've found is to break it down into smaller, manageable chunks. Don't sit down thinking, I have to study all of this. Instead, focus on one small section at a time. Set a goal like, I'm going to nail down this chapter in the next 20 minutes. When you do that, it feels a lot less overwhelming.
That's such a good point. And remember the big picture. Even if the subject feels boring right now, think about why you're studying it. Maybe it's a stepping stone to your dream career, or it's something you need to pass. To get to the fun stuff later, keep your eye on the prize.
Absolutely. And one last thing, reward yourself. After you've completed a section, treat yourself with something small. It can be a snack, a quick walk, or even just 5 minutes of doing something you enjoy. It gives you something to look forward to.
All right, next question. This one's from Raju. I keep getting distracted by social media. Help. Oh man, this is a big one for so many people.
Definitely. Social media is designed to grab our attention and keep it. 1 minute you're checking a message, and next thing you know, it's an hour later, and you're deep in cat videos or memes.
So true. But here's what works. First, you need to set clear boundaries with your phone. Try using apps like Forest or Focus at Will. Forest lets you grow a virtual tree while you study, but if you exit the app, your tree withers. So it's a fun way to keep you off your phone.
Yeah, and Focus at Will is another great option. It uses scientifically optimized music that helps you stay in the zone. Music without lyrics works best for focus, so try instrumental tracks or nature sounds that don't steal your attention.
And let's not forget about good old airplane mode. If you know social media is going to distract you, just eliminate the temptation. Put your phone on airplane mode, or even leave it in another room while you study. Out of sight, out of mind.
That's such a great tip. And hey, if you really can't resist, try setting specific social breaks. Work for 25 to 30 minutes, then give yourself 5 minutes to check your phone. That way, you satisfy the urge but don't derail your entire study session.
Exactly. Small doses of social media can be a nice reward if you time it right. So, what are your biggest distractions? Let us know in the comments and we'll tackle more of your questions in the next episode.
And don't forget, if you got any tips that have helped you beat distractions, share them. We're all in this together, and your advice could help someone else stay focused.
Absolutely. Thanks for sending in your questions and keep them coming. We love hearing from you. That's a wrap on today's episode. We hope these focus tips give you the boost you need to stay on track.
Absolutely. Remember, focus is a skill, so keep practicing and be patient with yourself. Small changes can lead to big improvements.
If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and share this video with someone who could use some focus tips.
And drop a comment below. Let us know your biggest challenges or what strategies work best for you. We love hearing from you.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Stay focused.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.